think, okay, so I think this also speaks to, not reinforcing stereotypes like you talked about, the misconceptions about Africa, for instance, and all of that. But I see much of, activists, people who, let's say, in quotes, they love Africa. They want to, advance Africa, but then their messaging is actually, speaking bad against Africa. You know what I mean? I mean, you're in the system, so you see some of these messages a lot. What would you say to those kinds of organizations, how to craft their messaging in order not to reinforce stereotypes? Yeah, they mean well, but their messaging is saying otherwise. What would you say, like, if you were to give these people an advice? What would you say to their communications team? Do this, do that. Do not do this, do not do that.
I think I'll tell them not to be lazy, you know? Um, Communication, and especially coming from organizations that purport to want to do good in Africa, they should understand the population they're dealing with, so that they don't reinforce some of the hurtful things that have been said or done to some of those people that they want to help. So the most important thing, first of all, is to have those communities tell their own stories, drive their agenda, you know. So you have a bottom up approach as opposed to top down approach where you just, talking down to people and trying to impose your will upon them. But if it's grassroots led, then there's going to be a lot of buy-in from the communities that you're working with. But we've seen organizations that have done incredible work in Africa, like the Bill and Melinda Gates organization. They do a lot of good things in Africa. But during COVID, you saw the Bill and Melinda Gates, especially Melinda Gates, say that Africa would be picking up bodies. Yeah. Expected worse from Africa because they've always been told to expect worse. And I remember I did a piece about that that was titled No Apocalypse in Africa After All, you know. And it's because stereotype sells, because it's a narrative that people have identified with for a very long time. And they probably don't want to deviate from that narrative because then they don't have something readily available to replace it with. So they would rather say Africa is poor and all that. But Africa can't be dealing with the same issues from the 1960s, where you're just telling us that we have diseases, we have bad governance, and we are fighting all the time because
Yeah.
there's poverty like you have never seen in India. How come it doesn't get how come it doesn't get that much press? Yeah, is because there's an obsession with the world to look at Africa as less than. But that is changing a little bit because of social media, and we're beginning to tell our own stories. But the most important thing actually is not for the world to look at Africa as a place of hope and as beautiful and as sexy. It is for Africa themselves to look at themselves as people that are worthy, that are as intelligent as people from any other part of the world. So we need to first of all change the narrative of how we see ourselves, you know, and therefore we'll be able to export that messaging and that picture to the world. A good example is Nigerian music. You know, Nigerian music was fast. Afrobeat was fast accepted in Nigeria. They loved it, they danced to it, and when they had embraced it and they didn't need any external validation, that's when it was transported to the rest of the world, first to Africa and then to the rest of the world. So charity begins at home, and it begins by loving the things that we have, yeah, who we are, before we transport our message to the rest of the world. However, just to belabor this point a little bit, the real narrative of Africa will change when Africa grows. You know, China didn't have to preach about narrative change and whatnot. China just had fiscal hygiene. They they retooled their toolkit. They worked very hard. They became they went from peasant economy, for lack of a better word, to become this global superpower. So development is ultimately what is going to change the narrative of Africa, and I think that is important for people to see, much as we yap around about narrative and all that. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I mean, this pretty much even concludes that. I mean, what we've been trying to say at the long run, teaching people how to tell the stories, teaching people how to create narratives that work, to make communications land effectively. And it's been an insightful moment. But before we go, quickly in 2 minutes or 1 minute, could you like say one thing that someone who is, because this video, I don't know how far it's going to go, but this video would be put out there for people to see or for people to watch. I mean, excerpts and all that. So what would you say to someone who is looking at building a career in communications, and what can the person take away? Just one thing that the person can take away from this whole conversation.
Understand. Thank you so much. Understand your audience. Have a culture map before you communicate. Understand the people that you want to communicate to. Another thing is that you need to understand communication is not about a spin. It's about stewardship. You're holding the trust of your people, your customers, and sometimes you're holding your own trust in your hands. So that is very important. So speak with clarity, listen with intent. Don't try always to manage the message, but shape it in a way that respects people's intelligence, meet them where they are, and leave them with something real, something real to hold on to.
Thank you so much. Round of applause. Thank you so much. It's Seth. Really, this has been an enriching moment. It's a few minutes, but you could see how far we've come with the conversations that we've had. So I'm also happy to do this again, if you don't mind.
Absolutely, always available. Usually,
Yeah.
I kind of the words just evaporate when I start speaking because I'm very effective with typing and writing, and
Yeah.
it's good to be a part of this conversation from time to time. And I think what you're doing is amazing. And yeah, I wish you all the best in
Thank you
everything
so
you're doing.
much.
I think it's
Thank you
amazing.
so much. Thank you so much. Definitely keep in touch. Okay. Thank you. And
You have a
to,
good one.
yeah, you too. Bye bye.
Bye.